I've already given you the running backs that I love, but now I have Zareh with me with 32 beat writers to give you 8 running backs that we're avoiding in fantasy football. And we're going to hop right into it. You have a hot take, and you said you're not exactly not going to draft them, but I'm assuming that the price is just too damn high. It's Christian McCaffrey with the 49ers. Right now in our full best ball tournament, the Rabbit, he's going at the 110. That's just at the turn. Are you not taking that as a discount, or do you still think that, I mean, even now it's starting to creep back up? Because I've seen in like other places, I've seen Christian McCaffrey fall to like the close to the other side of the turn on the second.
So CMC's current price is a discount if, right? And it's contingent on that if he stays healthy. And it's really also, so I got my ADPs from Underdog, and they have really good ADPs for running backs, because wide receivers have more of a premium over there. So this was a bit of a difficult exercise trying to find 4 running backs that I hated. But I mean, like, if you're looking at Christian McCaffrey, 29 years old, coming off Achilles tendonitis, came back in the year, had a PCL injury in the middle of the year, and then I'm quoting Stefania Bell. She said the recent Achilles tendonitis is more reflective of a wear and tear effect, right? And Stefania Bell is a 49ers fan. She speaks with it. That sounds as unbiased as possible. If she's talking about Christian McCaffrey's wear and tear, his heavy utilization. Also, at that point in the draft, that 1-2 turn, I'm not trying to incorporate risk at that turn. I understand the upside. We all understand who CMC is, but I'd rather have somebody like Malik Neighbors, BTJ at the turn, right? Like in a PPR format, I'd rather have those elite top one of the two. If I can get 2 elite top 12 wide receivers, I'd rather have those guys. If I can get Malik Neighbors, Devon Achane, Derrick Henry, I can go. There's just better options. There's less risk at that point. So I don't really need to expose myself to that. That's just my own personal philosophy. If somebody else chooses to get more aggressive at the end of the first round, I completely understand that. But there's other league-winning players at that area of drafts.
No, and I love that you said it's all about risk and where you're willing to acquire it. And to be more specific, just how much that's baked into the cost. And like I said, we're paying draft picks. So like when you're paying for the 110, you got to think about who's going there. And like I said, we still have super fresh ADP because like our Rabbit tournaments, I think it's barely even 5 days old yet. So like stuff is moving, but it's starting to match a lot of stuff, like you said, with Underdog a little bit more closely. And even with Underdog, you can get Lad McConkey right there, Brian Thomas Jr. often. Sometimes I've seen Puka and Jahmyr Gibbs fall close to that range, depending on what lobby that you're in. You get some of these guys who just don't like the young guys, and they'll keep drafting like even Derrick Henry higher. Just it's all the luck of the draw of what you get. I've only just now started drafting CMC, and I remember talking to you like on the Twitter timeline about this, or somewhere about how like in order to just take shots, and really especially when you're playing best ball, or playing in multiple leagues, how much exposure you want to a player. In order for me to get CMC, it's the if. Like if he's healthy at that cost, I have someone who has legitimate RB1 upside, but it's like you said, it's father time. And if you start to look at those hit rates on stuff, and especially you talk about the Achilles tendonitis, that's a huge risk. And I find myself just not drafting him. And like I said, I can literally count on one hand the shares because I've only just now told myself the story to get myself to draft elsewhere, that I'll draft Jahmyr Gibbs, Puka Nacua, all those other people that I'd rather have at that spot. And I think that with wide receiver, if I miss out on Barkley, Bijan, Gibbs, Jeanty, I'm just going wide receiver. I'm going Brock Bowers. I'm going and finding that positional upside elsewhere besides running back. So like, will you take the second round Christian McCaffrey, or are you just still kind of avoiding if possible?
Yeah, I think I start, taking shots at Christian McCaffrey, like after Nico Collins or Brian Thomas come off the board. Okay. I think that's about where I'm ready to go. Maybe like somewhere Derrick Henry, CMC, middle middle-ish of the second round, I'm fine with that. Right where that tier drop-off starts.
Yeah, basically, if there's a top 12 wide receiver on the board or Brock Bowers, I'm probably going that route. Drake London is about where I would go, and I might make other decisions because like Ladd McConkey, I think he has top 5 upside. Let's just say it, man. I'm not saying directly that he is Cooper Kupp because his profile is more Garrett Wilson. If you look at him, how they're built, how they're usage, and how they're used and deployed. But if you think about how they earn targets, I don't think it's out of the question that he could repeat last season, and if not, expand on that now that there's other receivers. I'd rather have that. I think I am grossly high on Puka Nacua. I take Puka Nacua at the 103 ahead of Justin Jefferson all the time. That's not no shade to Justin Jefferson. Sometimes I'm playing in tournaments. I'm just trying to get as much as both of these guys as I want, but I just think that legitimately he could have top upside. Malik Neighbors, he could have wide receiver 1 upside just because who else are the Giants going to give the ball to? It's
and Malik Neighbors, his quarter. I mean, they had I call it bad quarterback Voltron. They have Danny DeVito, Drew Lock, one guy you can't remember his name because he had played like one game. I can't remember who it was, but I mean, like now their quarterbacks situation is far more stable in New York. They got Wilson, Dart, and Jameis Winston. I mean, I'd love to see Jameis Winston there personally. That'd be insane. But yeah, I mean, I just can't take CMC where he's at. It's just a little bit too risky right now where he's at.
I understand it. My first one is, I might be wrong again, man. I might be wrong again, but I have a feeling that you might be closer to where I'm at. It's Kyren Williams. In our Rabbit Full Bestball tournament, he's going at the 306. I see him go earlier sometimes because there's some people under the belief that, man, maybe he should be a second-round pick. I just can't get there. It's touchdown cologne, man. He's one of the least efficient runners. The Rams had one of the least explosive run rates, and where he scored all of his touchdowns are from 1 and 2 yards out. Everything and all of their moves have said that they want more help at running back. Moreover, just from his build and the type of running back that he is, you probably want someone else getting some of these carries. Just like you said, man, I can't spend that money on Kyren Williams in any sense. And he's one where I'm just not drafting him, man. Like I could talk myself into CMC and I am talking myself into CMC, but Kyren Williams, there's no way I can draft him when Breece Hall right there, right above him, Devontae Adams in that range, Jalen Hurts. If I want positional upside, I'm going to take Jalen Hurts. George Kittle, I have him 1 tier below McBride and Bowers when it comes to tight ends in 2025. I'm going to reach further below him. I'd rather have Teteroa McMillan. I think there's a path for Teteroa McMillan to have a top 12 season if they feed him targets. I just think there's no reason for you to take Kyren that high when you could have Jarquez Hunter or Blake Corum later. And I know everyone's like, well, Blake Corum was taking punt returns last year. Whatever, man. I don't think they're going to redo what they had last season. I just don't buy it. Where are you at?
So I agree with you on Kyren Williams. I mean, there's just far more premium options at other positions where Kyren Williams is being drafted right now. Like you mentioned, I mean, Josh Allen's right there, JSN's right there, Breece Hall's right there, Lamar Jackson, Jaden Daniels. Like these guys are like top 2 or 3 at their position. I'd rather pivot to that and just go somewhere else for running back later.
And that's underdog, dude. Like
yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm kind of surprised why underdog's doing that. Honestly, I don't know why it feels like a reach for Kyren Williams. Last year, Kyren Williams was he had one of the least explosive like breakaway run rates of like top 12 running backs. I think he had like a sub 20% breakaway run rate. Pretty bad. We saw Puka Nacua use a lot on screens and design passes at extension of the run game, which just screamed like they need explosive plays, which is why I think they brought Jarquez Hunter, who's an explosive playmaker. I mean, breakaway run rate is kind of it's not so sneaky, but it's kind of it's an indicator that this guy, he's not giving us what we need on the ground. It could carry over to the next season. It's more. I mean, there's more run blocking issues that have to do with it. I don't think the Rams run blocking was horrendous last year, but I mean, if it does carry over, Jarquez Hunter fits right in. Snap starts coming off of Kyren Williams. And I know it's like we do this like. If you like the past 2 years with Kyren Williams or the past year, we were all down on him because of the whole punt return thing. But this feels more real with Kyren Williams, and my favorite running back of the offseason was Jarquez Hunter. So I mean, I already think very highly of Jarquez Hunter. When I see Jarquez Hunter go there, it's a significant red flag that pops up for Kyren Williams. So yeah, I'm absolutely avoiding Kyren Williams. That's a good pick right there.
And I will say Blake Corum isn't the shining example of explosive run rate, but efficiency he is. Because like that's another thing that people like don't understand is like Kyren Williams is inefficient and he's not explosive. Like it's just like that's a bad combo. Because you want to talk about sticky stats, it's like, yeah, just don't look at explosive run rate, but when you pair it with how efficient they are, or yards per carry, it is another indicator of efficiency. And it makes sense that we're like, wow, Blake Corum is at least efficient and more of a thumper than Kyren Williams is. Cause again, he's not really a tackle breaker on top of that. And then Jarquez Hunter, another guy, like I said, you are the biggest person on the Jarquez drumbeat. I got to give you credit on there. Cause I thought you were wilding out for a minute, but he had one of these best outside run zone rates in college. Guess what system he goes to, folks? An outside zone scheme that like, and again, it is proven that McVay, Kyle Shanahan, profiles that the spreadsheet nerd may really love in the offseason for Dynasty, they don't really care about. Whereas like a lot of people are like, well, Ricky Pearsall, he's old. I was like, well, Kyle Shanahan likes him, so I do. That's kind of thing. That's the kind of man with the Rams. I was like, hey man, did he break spreadsheets? No, but he has some key metrics that fit a system, and Sean McVay's proven that he knows what he's doing. It's Sean McVay like Puka Nacua, and where's Puka Nacua at right now? So, I'm not saying that it's the same. Right? Yeah. So it's very interesting. It's just, I don't get it, man. And he's one that it's kind of like Roschon Johnson, where I keep saying that Kyle Monangai, I'm going to continue to draft Kyle Monangai because I just don't believe Roschon's real. His biggest thing, when their running back's biggest trait is that they are a good pass blocker and there's nothing else. That's not good, man. That's not good. It's like, okay, maybe we should just get better offensive linemen and a running back that scores points. That's kind of how the game works for me.
I just saw that stat yesterday. I was looking at pass blocking for running backs yesterday. And I saw that Roschon Johnson and like J.K. Dobbins, Javonte Williams were some of the best pass blocking backs in the league last year, which explains why J.K. Dobbins ended up in Denver. And I guess secures Roschon Johnson's spot as a third down pass blocking back. But I mean, outside of that, what else has he done?
That's what I'm saying. Everyone's like, well, Roschon's the guy. I was like, Roschon's had 3 seasons, guys, to be the guy. That's been a wide open backfield. There's one, like, I liked Roschon when he was drafted. I was like, wow, that's a good idea, and I get the process. I'm not saying it was bad for you to draft him in fantasy then, but now to bet on him at this point, it's like, what more do we need? He is a converted quarterback in high school who played 10 snaps just for the sake of, like, relative speaking, comparing to other running backs behind Bijan. And then we've built up this myth. And that's a little bit of a rant on Roschon that I didn't mean to go, but we're going to go to your next guy here. This is the one that, like, I gotta question you, dog. And I will say, now that I've looked at the Rabbit tournament and where we're drafting him, you might be on to something. It's Ashton Jeanty. He's going 107 right now. And to explain to you, Z, where the Rabbit is, it's full best ball, but it's still made to be fast. So it's only 10 teams, and you're only drafting 15. So having higher upside and making sure you hit on those top picks are even more important because you only have 2 running back, 2 wide receiver slots. So Jahmyr Gibbs, and I get it, I'm not saying he's bad, Ashton Jeanty, I'm not saying he's bad, but you're going to take him ahead of Malik Neighbors, Puka Nacua, Nico Collins, Brian Thomas Jr. I don't know. That's a little bit where I'm at. I don't know where you're at.
I mean, it seems kind of sketchy. I mean, remember Bijan Robinson's first year in the draft, first year in the league, he was drafted like top 4, top 5 overall. And, I think Bijan Robinson's still a better prospect than Ashton Jeanty. But, like, I mean, again, it's just where he's going at. He's going ahead of players and in the area of other players who are proven veterans who they're just vouched for. They've proved their worth already. Why am I going to do that? It just seems like an unnecessary risk. I feel like the target volume doesn't really justify GT's target volume for this year. It really doesn't justify his ADP, honestly. Like, I don't think he's going to be a high target earner. They've got Bowers, they got Jacoby Myers, they've got already guys to feed the ball to. I just don't think he's going to be a PPR star. I don't project him to be that way. Again, I'd rather have Achane later. I'd rather have Derrick Henry later. I'd have Jonathan Taylor later. I'd rather have, I'd rather just wait and just go get Alvin Kamara for some reason, like in the 5th round. I have no idea what's up with that. But I mean, it just doesn't seem like I think JT's better for a profile of a team that wants to do like anchor running back. If you want to just draft him super early and just kind of like, that's what I would do. Like, I draft Ashton very early and I just disregard running backs till like round 7 or 8. Like, here's an example, right? I was in a league last year, 12-man league. We started 3 wide receivers, 2 running backs, 2 flex. Running backs started flying off the board, right? And I took like Nico Collins, Brian Thomas Jr., Trey McBride. I just didn't even touch a running back. My 2 starting running backs last year in that league were Ryan Robinson Jr. and Javonte Williams. And I picked up like Tyrone Tracy later on down the road. And I just kept on rotating these running backs because I knew that this is a PPR format. And we need high volume earners in a PPR format. I had 3 stud wide receivers, Trey McBride, earning lots of catches, constantly contributing to my fantasy team. I won the league last year. It was a big money league. And I was able to buy new golf clubs because I won that league, and those aren't cheap. So, like, it's just.
I know you love your golf.
I love my golf. It's not really a hard game. Like, I think we can split hairs and splice stats and splice everything, but it's really about volume, target volume. It's like, if you want to just like simplify it, just target volume. I don't think JT is going to be earning targets. I mean, I'd rather have a running back who can earn the similar amount of targets, who's probably going to be on a better offense later on in the draft. And, JT's like, he's a great running back. I'm not saying he's going to suck in the NFL. Should have an outstanding career, but I just don't want him where he's going right now. It just doesn't make sense for me. I'd rather have Malik Neighbors. I'd rather have all the guys we were talking about.
Yeah, man, this is why I love you, and I'm glad I brought you on because like we approach the game similarly. Like I'm mainly film first, and then like you said, it's very simple things that like I have people in the comments all the time. They're like yada yada yada, yap 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 about certain things. I'm like, guys, for QB1 upside, you have to run the football. Like that's it. You have to run the football to have, or you have to throw a metric, and excuse my French, a metric fuck ton at a high rate and a lot of touchdowns to have QB1 overall. Like that's what it is. And the same thing with running back. Running back, you have to have a 15 touchdown season and like 1,500 yards on the ground. You have to have Derrick Henry's best season to be RB1 if you don't have pass catching. It's just plain and simple on there. Like this is why I'm actually the biggest Caleb Johnson fan. I'm the biggest Caleb Johnson fan because the price right now. The price is right for where he's at. But pre-draft, everyone was like, why aren't you so much higher on Caleb Johnson? He doesn't catch passes, guys. He doesn't catch passes. And that's like someone, and granted, he barely has acceptable draft capital. He doesn't have ideal draft capital, which is day 2. And now he's in a precarious spot. Why I was high on Woody Marks? He catches passes. He does the things that score points. Like I was on JJ Zachariason's show. And like I have a film model where I take a film score and grade traits, put it in, and it gives me an answer. To call what JJ do and I do is the same, not quite. Like mine's still based on film, and I'm like, mine spits out here because of receiving. And it's weird. He has a different approach, and it's the same thing. So that's like my big rant of like to kind of say what you're saying, man. It's target volume. Another one where I will argue volume against is efficiency. If they have an efficient offense, I can ignore some of the volume concerns, like the 49ers is who I'm talking about. Sometimes the Eagles. I'm talking about these Super Bowl caliber teams. I'm not talking about efficiency like I'm trying to think of a scrub that's efficient and good, and they're not out there. It's literally like 4 teams. So, yeah, I get where you are on Jeanty, and you did a really good job of like talking me down, because like it's not that you don't want Jeanty, it's just the cost for what you're gonna get for him.
Yeah.
Does Amon-Ra St. Brown seem criminally cheap right now, or do you think that's like because like right now he's the 12th off the board in the Rabbit tournament right now. I mean, he was like a top 6 pick just last year.
Yeah, he is. I don't know why he's about the 1-2 turn right now. I think maybe Jamison Williams being hyped up so much during the offseason might be leaving a bad taste in drafters' mouths. Maybe it's their OC leaving to Chicago, and people are just scared of what's going to happen there now. But I mean, Amon-Ra's been doing it year after year after year. There's no reason to doubt him this year. He's
even without Ben Johnson, he's been a target earner.
The target earner on that. Yeah. He's the target earner on that team. Yeah, he's definitely cheap.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's like someone else I'm seeing now where it's just like, especially like this is the Rabbits full PPR, underdog a lot of times half PPR, but especially in full PPR, seems a little bit egregious to take a lot of these high PPR wide receivers after Jeanty. Wow. You were more reasonable than I thought on that. That's enough Jeanty slander. It's not really slander. It's just maybe a little too expensive. But my next one is James Cook. He's going in the 4th round here. I don't know about you, man. It's the same thing. Again, we talk about making fantasy simple. Guys that hold out and don't do off-season stuff, they don't play well in season. It is better for you. It's very simple. It's better for you if you practice with your team more than if you practice with your team less. This applies to players who are extremely good. This means that they're the top 5, let's even just say top 10 at their position. You know, I don't think James Cook is a top 10 running back at his position. So when you're not practicing with your team, moreover, they drafted Ray Davis day 2 last year, and you have Josh Allen, and you had touchdown Cologne. What are we doing? What are we doing, man? A lot of people, they're thinking, this is my discount RB1, or this is my high-end RB2. This won my league. And I'm thinking, why wouldn't I just draft James Cook? Let me scroll why wouldn't I just draft Ray Davis? Let me scroll way down here. 10 rounds later. The point. You know?
That's the point. Let me scroll way down. Yeah. I was gonna put James Cook on this list for me, right? And I feel like he's kind of at a discount right now, and I get your point, and I totally get your point. Mm-hmm. And then I was thinking about that whole goal line narrative about Josh Allen being the goal line option on the Bills until I looked up those inside the 5-yard splits for carries, team percentage of carries inside the 5. So check this out. So in 2023, those carries inside the 5 splits look like this. Josh Allen had 43.8% carries inside the 5. James Cook had 12.5. In 2024, it looked drastically different. Josh Allen saw a reduction of carries inside the 5 at 37%, and James Cook had 48% of carries inside the 5. So if you're getting that kind of like 4th, 5th round on one of the better offenses in the league, I feel like that's a huge premium discount on a running back who maybe he could find in his heart to take a team-friendly deal. But to your point about Ray Davis, like, I think everybody in the draft community who watches film said, man, Ray Davis might have been the RB1 in the class if he wasn't 30 years old, or 26 years old.
Yeah.
How old was he? 24 years old. How old was he when he came 20?
He's super old. He's super old. I'll look it up right now how old he is. Yeah.
Ray Davis was fantastic in college. His film was hard not to love.
But yeah, I mean, he's had that one lone start against the Jets that we all saw in prime time on Thursday Night Football, I think. Balled out, went for that huge 40, 50-yard reception downfield, like laid out, arms outstretched. I mean, was constantly earning yards against the Jets in a divisional game. I mean, like, and then he was used as a pass catching option. His role expanded to like a pass catching option alongside Ty Johnson. Came through late in the season, playoffs. So I think they feel very comfortable with Ray Davis. I mean, who's a more than capable running back, running out of different schemes. James Cook is a slippery, efficient back too, but I mean, they don't have to pay him if they don't want to. If they want to spend it at another position, so I think the weight is really on James Cook's shoulders right now with this decision more than it is on the Bills, because James Cook, I think he understands who Ray Davis is. I think he understands. I've played with this guy, I've seen this guy. They don't have to pay me if they don't want to. So he's going to have to take a team friendly discount. But if he does do that, I think he's a very good value at his current ADP of RB14.
See, James Cook is just at the edge of these running backs where like Tedero McMillan's the only receiver I really like in this range. I'm not convinced DJ Moore is as big as a discount and everyone's talking. I'm just not on the end of that. Ben Johnson is one of these coaches I feel like we're going to look back on. It's like he was very clear about what he wanted. Or look at Coach Speak. You ever find a clip of him being very candid about what he wants in players, and we're going to be disappointed. But Jameson Williams, maybe I'm following the drumbeat, but I like the price of Jameson Williams. Joe Burrow's there. He fits the metric of, I don't run, but I throw the ball a metric fuck ton, so I get a lot of points. But then even these running backs, it's like, why would I just take James Cook when I can just have Quinshon Judkins, Trevion Henderson, Caleb Johnson? I feel like they have just as much upside when it's all said and over. And that's why I wouldn't want him then. Because I guess you're right. Like if James Cook just decides to get it together, and really it's all about training camp. If he shows up in training camp, I think it's fine. But if he does this 4-week holdout stuff, it's just not good most of the time. They're like, well, he's been working out. I'll believe that if you're like a young Tyreek Hill level athlete. I think we've seen him do that. But again, he's just not that type of player, and that's why I worry. And before we go to your next one, we'll take a brief moment to pay the bills. If you like content like this, hit the like and subscribe button. More importantly, you hear me referencing these ADPs. Like I said, we just launched our full best ball tournament, the Rabbit. That's 10 teams, 15 rounds. It's still shorter, only 20 minutes to get a full standard PPR best ball tournament out. If you want in on that action, we're doing a $50 deposit match. Just use the code on the screen, code JAG, and we'll get you signed up. But we'll jump right back into it. Your next one is one where honestly, I've just quit talking about him because I've been on this bandwagon a long time. It's Bucky Irving from the Buccaneers. He is going to the 207 at the Rabbit. He's routinely a round 2 running back. I have rarely seen him go at after the second round.
So yeah, I've got him as RB9 in ADP. Finished RB19 in points per game last year. He's currently being drafted ahead of T. Higgins, Josh Jacobs, Trey McBride, Garrett Wilson, Chase Brown. I think if people can recall, like he and Rachaad White had about the same market share of targets last year in Tampa Bay. Igbuka is now part of the offense. He did a lot of his work when Mike Evans and Chris Godwin were off the team. They were all both injured, so that's when he was getting a lot of his work and a lot of his receptions. So now they have Mike Evans, Igbuka, and Chris Godwin back in the fold. And it just doesn't really seem like it's also this is like a Ashton GT CMC kind of deal. Like, just doesn't really seem like a justifiable place based on the context of the team this year, based on the projected target volume. I don't think he's going to get as many targets as. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't get as many targets as he did last year. I'd be willing to bet that he doesn't, based on who's there this year. I'd rather have T. Higgins. I'd rather have Josh Jacobs. I'd rather have Trey McBride, Garrett Wilson, Chase Brown. I'd rather have all those guys based on the target volume. That's simply the case. It's another thing. It's another kind of look at. Is he going to get the targets? I don't think so. I think there's going to be a lot of other worthwhile options to throw it to for Baker Mayfield. And for that reason, he's going too early. I mean, he finished his RB19 in points per game last year. RB9, 10 spots higher than where he finished last year. I mean, What is Rashad White gone? I don't know. Like Sean Tucker's still there. It's harder. It's hard for me to buy into that.
This is and we talked a little bit about this pre-show about the cognitive dissonance between the fantasy mind of like the everyday redraft bro and or the like the I'd say newbie redraft person or the everyday redraft person, and then us, and especially if we come from a football first standpoint and then not just like a fantasy number standpoint, because it's almost the same argument you could make with David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, where you have people kept saying, well, he's explosive. And I know you've heard us talk about explosive run rates, but again, you need to take all the data and to make a profile, not just key stats and say that this is it here, where David Montgomery's always been an efficient runner when he's not been, nerfed in Chicago, always been like a good running back, but people were convinced that Jahmyr Gibbs is here. David Montgomery doesn't matter because he sucks at this. Rashad White, very good pass catcher. He's very good at one thing, third down. Very good pass blocker, very efficient once he gets the ball, not the greatest runner. And that's what you said, where I feel like we're drafting Bucky Irving at his ceiling. And I know sometimes you do that, but the ceiling just isn't very high. Like, I just don't find Bucky Irving's ceiling that much higher than Breece Hall is right now. I would just rather have Breece Hall a lot cheaper. Sometimes Breece Hall's going third and fourth round. Just go get Breece Hall. You know what else he does? He catches passes already. We don't have to worry about the contingent Rashad White problem because there's not one. If anything, there's going to be a Braylon Allen rushing problem. But again, that's already baked into that price there to where you're insulating yourself from RB1 value from a player who may not hit the ceiling of where you're drafting him at. Especially, and I don't know if you're like this, man, because you mentioned earlier about essentially having hero RB, like that's kind of where I'm drafting now, where I want my anchor running back, and then right around 6 or 7, I'm hammering RB after that. These rookies, man, like they're a cheat code right now in redraft to where I can go get a Breece Hall. I can go even earlier, get Jahmyr Gibbs, then just fade running back, get a bunch of pass catchers, get a QB, then go get a bunch of running backs later. So I love this call out.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so I spoke about the players that he's going ahead of, right? So T. Higgins is on Bengals, who obviously they were number one in pass rate over expectation. All they do is throw the ball, right? I want T. Higgins getting the ball delivered by Joe Burrow, right? Josh Jacobs was outstanding last year, did a really good job. I think there's more meat left on the bone as far as like receiving. Probably there could be a little bit more for over there. There's not really any competition. There's Marshawn Lloyd, who hasn't done anything. Chris Brooks and other
Savion Williams.
Can't remember. No, I like Savion Williams as a kind of like a degenerate pick. Kind of want to see what happens there. But no, then there's Trey McBride. You know what team threw it to the tight end the most last year? The Arizona Cardinals. The Arizona Cardinals threw it to the tight end the most last year. You know what position they threw it to the least last year? Wide receiver. Poor Marvin Harrison. It's terrified for him. Garrett Wilson. He's in the same situation that DJ Moore was in Chicago in 2023. It's the same exact copy-paste situation. He's going to get fed targets. I'm not even worried about him. There's Malachi Corley. Oh, Josh Reynolds. Josh Reynolds is the wide receiver too. Alan Lazard.
Arian Smith is a legend at this point. Like, it's a myth. Like, we don't even know if that's real.
No, seriously. And then Chase Brown. Give me Chase Brown on the Bengals, man. That guy's going to get fed targets too. Again, I love Bucky RB. I'm not saying he's a bad football player. It just doesn't make sense. That's all I'm saying. Yep.
Nailed it, man. It's kind of like the jump the shark thing here. We're just like, I think we just gotten way too far, like we all won on Bucky Irving if you drafted him and knew who he was, because he was like my RB. Like a lot of film guys, RB1, RB2 for all of us. Then he falls and we're like, well, the combine happens, and then he falls and we're like, oh, I don't get it. So it doesn't. And now, like that we've won, we're like, well, now he's the best running back ever. And I'm like, no, I think we need to be realistic about that situation. I'm here for it. Next on my list, this is a me guy that I don't like. It's Joe Mixon going 5th round here. Everyone keeps talking about how Well, Joe Mixon is another discount. This is another one where I feel like Father Time. I'm just not going to be the guy who's going to get hurt by Joe Mixon. Maybe I'm wrong for having that mentality, but this is another player where we're like, even more so than Kyren Williams, where we're seeing a team have every reason why they need to upgrade and fix running back. We saw the Bengals, and I do think the Bengals are a little bit, or at least Brian Callahan was also a problem why Joe Mixon didn't work well with efficiency. That's this whole other things. But we saw Joe Mixon go away, and we see Chase Brown go in. We're like, oh, wow, they immediately have a more explosive plays out of their running back. And Chase Brown is a Stevie Wonder. He can't see anything. Like that's just straight up a blind man with a cane that finds a hole and then gets through it right there. He's like one of these running backs, man. Like I call him Stevie Wonder. He's just not a great runner, but like at least with the volume there, it could happen and he's fast enough. And we saw that. Now you go to the Houston Texans. We saw 4 good games and we see this year in and year out with the data with these running backs. These old running backs, they'll start out high. You're like, well, why do we ever fade him? And then when it comes to playoff time, we're like, well, why is he getting 2 yards a carry? And why is this guy I've never heard of taking these snaps? It's because it's like after the second half of the season and they slowed down. That happened to Joe Mixon last year. So they did the Dolphins thing. They go get Woody Marks. They go get Nick Chubb. And I'm not saying that Nick Chubb is going to come in here and be an RB2 or saying that. I don't even know if he's going to be viable in fantasy, but I think he's going to take away a lot of that contingent upside from volume that we're baking into Joe Mixon's price. Then you factor in Woody Marks, who they brought in for a top 50 visit. They traded future second round capital to get back into the 4th round to get him. Why? Are you still drafting Joe Mixon? Am I crazy?
I mean, so I sent you this show sheet earlier, and you're like, oh, this is like a crazy sheet. Look at these names on here, and I was like, okay, shit, maybe I should change somebody. I was gonna put Joe Mixon on this show sheet until I saw you had him on there. I was like, all right, I'll roll with my guys that I saw.
Yeah,
so I feel the same way about you about Joe Mixon. And look, I think Nick Chubb obviously doesn't have it, but I think he is in that similar stage that Frank Gore was in towards the end of his career, where he lost it. But those two guys are some of the best pure running backs. They could still run pure despite their lack of athleticism. They could still run effectively. They understand how to read blocking. They understand how to see the field. They are highly intelligent runners. And I think that's where Nick Chubb is. I think he's just a steady, coach's favorite kind of running back. He's going to behave. He's going to listen. He's going to do what's asked of him. And I think he's going to he's absolutely going to eat into Joe Mixon's value. I think I like Joe Mixon a little bit more if Nick Chubb wasn't there. But then there's also Woody Marks, he got fed in Mike Leach's offense. You got a ton of looks as a receiver. So that's what we all know him as, but also he's a solid running back. He's a good running back also. He's not just a target sponge. He's also a solid running back, and he could definitely eat into the rotation as well. So it's a little bit scary, and also the offensive line is horrendous. It's atrocious. So there's not really any value in the run blocking either. So yeah, it's tough. I mean, like if you want to take him as like, I'd feel scared taking honestly as him as my RB2. It'd feel like, yeah, there's no real upside. I wouldn't really have any ceiling games. It'd just be like, okay, I'm structuring my lineup based off of like 10 to 12 PPR points maybe a game on average with some ceiling games, so yeah, I don't really feel great about Mixon either.
Yeah, and what's crazy is like, even I hate a lot of these, like I say hate 3 players, but I would rather have them than Joe Mixon. And this is just the rabbit ADP. I don't know what you're seeing over there at Underdog, but DK Metcalf in that range. Hate DK Metcalf, would rather have DK Metcalf. George Pickens, don't like him, would rather have him. Calvin Ridley, that would just depend. But like, here's where it gets gross here. Why we're drafting Joe Mixon. I know, and spoilers, Chuba Hubbard is coming up. I'd rather have Chuba by a lot. I'd rather have James Conner, Caleb Johnson, Trevion Henderson, Chris Olave. Like David Montgomery, I see the upside a little bit more than for Joe Mixon here. That last year really messed us up, man, because it was an outlier year for older running backs and them lasting a long time. And I think we kind of forget, and I don't want to call it a class, but this group of running backs that have been around for a long time, it's kind of like the Avengers, where we're at the point now where Chris Evans and Robert Downey Jr. don't want to be Avengers anymore. Where like Joe Mixon, Derrick Henry, all these guys, like they're still going to be good. Well, eventually this franchise has to end. And I think that like we're reaching that point and we're just hanging on a little too long to these older guys when statistically it does fall off. That's like Adrian Peterson. He got old eventually, man. We saw it, and he would do anything to play right now. If you hear the depressing state of his finances, don't look it up, guys, unless you want to be sad. It's pretty bad, but like it happens. It's all I'm saying. So I guess that's a good segue into yours. You have Chuba Hubbard. He's my boy, man. I think I've drafted him a lot. So I'm interested in why he's too high for you.
So Chuba Hubbard, last year he kind of had a stranglehold on the job. So let's just talk about where he's being drafted first. Right now he's being drafted as RB6. RB16, and he finished RB12 last year in points per game in half PPR leagues. I mean, and this is a guy who had a stranglehold on the job last year, right? I mean, he was the only viable running back in the backfield, the only viable healthy running back in that backfield last year for the majority of the year. He had a 73% share of backfield touches, but I mean, as a receiver, not efficient. 0.51 yards per route run, 4 yards per reception, a PFF receiving grade of 39.5. Right. I mean, he would, and so now we got Rico Dowdle back there this year. We have another significant player in that backfield, and both of them, were similar as far as rushers. Yards per attempt. Hubbard was 4.8, Dowdle was 4.6. Missed tackles forced per attempt. Hubbard was at 20%. Dowdle was at 19%. Yards after contact per attempt was the last one I'll throw out there. Hubbard was at 3.46. Dowdle a little bit lower, 3.28. Similar rushers. Dowdle only got the opportunity for 2 touchdowns, so it dropped him in fantasy points per game. But then you have Trevor Etienne back there, another kind of satellite. He can run the ball as well too. He also gets overlooked for that. But I mean, I don't see Chuba Hubbard paying off at his ADP right now, especially somebody who had such a large market share of touches and somebody who's got now 2 pretty significant pieces in the backfield who might compete for touches, and additionally, not Hubbard not being an efficient receiver on the ground last year.
Interesting. I will say the receiving, to call it a ceiling is generous. Let's say the receiving floor is very low for Chuba Hubbard, and I see that. And like maybe I'm just underestimating Rico Dowdle and what he's going to be used, because it's more just that Dave Canales, Liam Cohn, they kind of both run similar offenses, so they deploy their running back similar. That all I see is that if the offense takes a step forward, that there's just more room for Rico Dowdle and not so much less room for Chuba Hubbard, if that makes sense here. Mm-hmm. To where like ultimately they can have a similar thing, but we are making, and this is where I tell everyone we start to collect too many ifs, where like, is Tedero McMillan the guy? Is Bryce Young the guy, to where both of them are going to take the offense a step forward? And then if they take a step forward, does everything else hold up, to where it's just not guaranteed fantasy production like you're drafting? I think that's exactly what you're saying, to where we're drafting Chuba Hubbard same area as Joe Mixon. And granted, Joe Mixon, I think, is just kind of an outlier on his own, but Chuba Hubbard's definitely in the range where most times I'd rather have Kenneth Walker. If Kenneth Walker's on the board, I'd rather have Kenneth Walker over Chuba Hubbard. Or I'll just dip into these rookies in good spots,
Yeah, I mean, I'd rather have Kenneth Walker. I'd rather have Alvin Kamara. I mean, honestly, like I'm pretty high on George Pickens, because I feel like the Cowboys are going to be, essentially what the Bengals were as far as a pass rate over expectation team. A team's just going to have a lot of pass volume, and I feel like George Pickens is going to be like, I don't know if you can call it like a poor man's T. Higgins, but I mean, if he's got his head on his shoulders, I feel like he can be a huge value if he can play right. I mean, Pickens sneakily like had a lot of slot targets last year. So I feel like they can kind of move him around the formation as well. And I think a lot of us are thinking of him as primarily an X receiver, a split end. But I mean, I think they can do some creative stuff with him as well. And Schottenheimer, I think he's going to be better head coach than Mike McCarthy was. So I mean, yeah. So I'd have Pickens, Kenneth Walker, Kamara going. Again, Hubbard feels like, given the context that I provided with the addition at running backs, I think he'll have like about a 10 to 11 fantasy point game, average point per game kind of floor. But yeah, the ceiling is there. I think Chuba Hubbard really performed well, though. I think he was a good running back. As he really, it was awesome. And we saw guys on Twitter talking about how Chuba Hubbard looked going into the 2024 season, in the 2023 season. They're like, hold on, this film looks really, really good, and that came to fruition last year. But yeah, just the additional pieces kind of scares me a little bit. Feels like kind of like an empty calorie RB2 a little bit.
Yeah. And that's like, again, that's the same theme where I tell everyone, you gotta think of it as like a 4-dimensional picture. And it's not, and I always say on here, the usual cliche, it's not the player, it's the ADP. And it usually comes down to, we only want to see what we want to see and not the other things in there. And I think, like you said, Rico Dowdle's why I tend to reach for someone who's almost back-to-back Kenneth Walker more times than not. I actually switched the show sheet because it's funny that, like I said, that it's like, wow, you have some hot takes. Well, you just give me the confidence to say what I really feel. I have a hard time drafting Omarion Hampton, dog. And I think he's too high. I thought he was too high in Dynasty. I think he's too high in redraft, where everyone is just convinced that Najee Harris is dust and he's not going to do anything. He's going to get 25% of the snaps, and only like when Omarion Hampton needs a breather, then they'll bring in Najee Harris. They're like, well, Omarion Hampton can do receiving. So does Najee Harris. That was like half of Najee Harris's like fantasy value for most of his career, is that he could catch passes. It's insane. We are taking Omarion Hampton ahead of James Cook, one hit, not Bucky Irving, Joe Mixon. You know how I feel about that. Chuba Hubbard. I'd rather have Kenneth Walker. I think Quinshawn Judkins should be ahead of Omarion Hampton in drafts. I think Trevion Henderson should be ahead of Omarion Hampton in redraft. Am I crazy?
No, man. I mean, like, look. I mean, people are writing off Najee Harris, but I mean, Gus Johnson was, a pretty big part of the offense when J.K. Dobbins was healthy too. I mean, dude, wasn't he? Like, yeah, I feel like he was. I feel like they used him a lot, right? And Najee Harris.
I played Gus Johnson and more. Right, yeah.
Go ahead, tell your story.
And I was just saying, I was like, I'm just saying, I just played Gus Johnson. Like people forget that like Gus Johnson is a thing. And Jim Harbaugh has always used multiple backs. In Michigan, he's used multiple backs. Like, if anything, I believe the narrative that maybe Justin Herbert's upside isn't there, or moreover, like I know Justin Herbert's upside isn't there, but Ladd McConkey may not have the upside more than I believe that Najee Harris isn't a valuable. I'd say he's a low-end RB2. I think he's closer to a low-end RB2 than an RB3 or RB4 handcuff that people are drafting him. I don't understand it. And that's my problem with Omarion Hampton.
To let you guys know, to let people know how much I feel similar to you about Omarion Hampton, is I have Raheem Sanders on so many taxi squads this year. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I have him on so many. I have him on so many taxi squads because that backfield is a nutrient-rich fertilizer for any running back to kind of thrive in. Right? That system, any running back has opportunity. Kamani Vidal squanders opportunity, right? I mean, Hassan Haskins was playing more snaps than Kamani Vidal. If you can show well in training camp, they're going to use you in that backfield. They love their running backs. Najee Harris, dude, kept Jalen Warren at bay for Jalen Warren's entire career. And Najee Harris is a functional, straight line running back. Doesn't make many mistakes. Mature in the run game. Doesn't have to be
pass block
craziest. Pass blocking, sure hands. Like, you don't have to do much. Just make the right decisions and don't piss off the coaches and don't make shit reads. I mean,
it's pretty straightforward. And Najee Harris is all those things. He's a stand-up dude. Like people hate these guys that the ultimate coach's guy. Like, well, he only has 3.6 yards per carry, but he does exactly what the coaches ask him to do and is very efficient. Like, it's just again, it's what we were talking about earlier about the cognitive dissonance between the fantasy brain of reading these players in spreadsheets and what actually coaches want. And a lot of people don't think about your manager at work, and you're like, well, what do you need? Like, this guy just does his fucking job, man. He just comes in and he does his job, and I don't have to ask him a lot. That's all you have to think. And that's what Jim Harbaugh, that's kind of what he's cultivated. If anyone's been more clear of what they want, like, Jim Harbaugh is one of the most candid coaches out there about what he wants. And Najee Harris has been a coveted player of him since Najee was coming out of high school. It's just, again, I'm not saying that Najee Harris is going to win you your league, but I'm saying you, depending on Omarion and Hampton to be your RB1, could lose you the league, you know?
Absolutely. I completely agree. And yeah, Omarion and Hampton should have a nice future, but for now, let's simmer down on that for sure.
And then for Dynasty, that's why I tell everyone that's like, I'm a little bit more back in now that I know that Daniel Jones is probably going to be the Colts QB1. Let's just say it. He's probably going to be the QB1. But like Tyler Warren and Omarion Hampton, I did not draft any in rookie drafts. And it's not because I don't like them. It's because I ended up drafting other players that I would just have ranked higher and I'm not playing redraft, guys. I just know how the dynasty brain thinks it works and how it actually works. Everyone's just like, well, I think about long-term, and you do to an extent, but when the chips are down in season, what do you start doing? So to me, Omarion Hampton, week 5 and 6, you know who I'm buying? Omarion Hampton. I'll start buying Tyler Warren 5 or 6 when everyone was like, they're like, this is going to win me the league. And I'm like, for sure. Then that price drops, then you start buying, you know, and that's kind of how I approach the dynasty aspect of it. It's not that I'm avoiding him because I think he sucks. No, I do have players that I think suck and I avoid, but a lot of times I'm like, not yet. It's like why I don't buy the console right away. I wait for the bugs to go out, and I wait for them to fix shit. And then by the time everything's fixed, it's probably $100 cheaper.
I paid. You're gonna pay for Omarion Hampton what I paid for my PS5 with a terabyte on it, like 2 years after it came out, right? Like, I bought this thing 2 years after it came out for $300 with a terabyte of storage on there. That's what you're gonna get Omarion Hampton for, like mid season, right? And people get confused. Like, they think, like you said, like Dynasty is like, they think like long-term 3 years out. Dynasty is really far more similar as far as like, if you look at your redraft rankings and your Dynasty rankings, they're probably a lot more similar than you think they'd be different. Like, there's the weight and value with a lot of players, they're pretty much in the same space as far as rankings goes, I think, because at the end of it all, we're just trying to win now. And you need those players. Like, Mike Evans doesn't look great preseason, but he's going to be a lot higher in your rankings when you're needing, a wide receiver 3 or 2, because you drafted a bunch of rookies and have just Garrett Wilson or something like that as your veteran receiver. So like that, don't overlook that value. Don't think too far on Dynasty, maybe 2 years out. And that's a long time, man. That's a long time out. I'm thinking like, dude, Dynasty, I'm thinking like a few months out, really, honestly, or maybe a year out as far out.
Yeah. And that's like, I say, like, you should think 3 years out, but you need to consider the value dips within there and your entry point. And that's what I'm saying. I think 3 years out where like, I haven't sold Garrett Wilson, that type thing where, where like some people were selling Garrett Wilson for like peanuts, where I'm just like, not yet. I'm not going to do that. That's where I'll think out. But like when I'm drafting, especially when I'm drafting, I'm almost drafting more with a redraft sense or all the way dynasty sense. Like, yeah, there's a little bit in between where I'm not just drafting all old players to win now. I am drafting about depth, but I'm making decisions about what can you do for me right now. So like in a startup, I have a lot of Trevion Henderson. I have a lot of Quinshon Judkins from startups. I wasn't drafting a lot of Omarion Hampton because people were taking him as like the RB5. And I'm just like, cool. You guys do that. I'll hit y'all up in October. It's just
Henderson's going to probably have more fantasy points than Hampton by the end of the year, as far as I'm concerned.
That's what I
see that.
I'm a Pats fan, man. And Ramondre Stephens, another one. I'm like, Ramondre, you could have been a star. You could be our Nick Chubb. You've had every opportunity to be the guy. And he's quite literally fumbled it away. And you know what the Patriots said? I hate this. I don't want to do this anymore. Why don't we just get a fast running back that also pass blocks and could catch passes? And they did. So it's just, like it's pretty easy to me. Fantasy doesn't have to be hard. But wounded there, folks. Thank you, Zareh. We always get into them trenches. You're over at 32 Beat Writers. Like I said, I've already had Matt Olson over there. You guys are talking about football more than you're talking about just fantasy. And that's not that doesn't matter here, but in my opinion, it matters even more because you guys have like a very good understanding of what is actually happening in the building and not what people are guessing by reading a spreadsheet. When does your pod start over there?
We record the first episode tomorrow night, so it'll be published sometime later in the week.
Hot dog. Can't wait to hear that, folks. As always, I'm Jagger May. Love you. We'll see you on the next one.
So I thought I needed.